hello. My name is Alonso Valenzuela, and I'm going to be presenting my final semester project. So basically, I'm going to begin right now. This is going to be a presentation slash podcast. The presentation is only to organize what I'm going to say, not actually because I'm using it a lot. I only have one slide with text and two with images. So let's begin. Topic. Home workers, or better known as muchachas, are very normal in San Pedro. Introduction. So, since I was very young, I remember always having a muchacha. So she was always basically home. She would help my mother cook, clean the house, plant, walk the dog, whatever. And to me, this was very normal, extremely normal. And when I went to a friend's home, she or he always had a muchacha as well. So to me, this was something very normal. And I could say like 6 or 5 years ago, I went to a nacional for swimming. And there I got to know a lot of people from different parts of the country. To me, it was a very good experience that I really needed to have, since I was used to being with people from San Pedro with a certain social status or with a certain economic status. So for me, getting to know people from different backgrounds was very important. And I was having a conversation with a friend from Guanajuato, and I mentioned like my something about my muchacha or something, and he was kind of shocked by it. And I was like, "What? Like you don't have one?" And he said, "No. Like all my family helped to cook, clean the house, and whatever." And to me, that was very interesting because for me, this was something very normal, but I never knew that people all around the country didn't. So this was something very specific to San Pedro, or at least to the people who have a high economic status. So how has this developed through history? So personally, I believe that this goes back way to the 1500s or even earlier, when the Europeans, used slaves from Africa to do work for them in Europe. And then this connects to when the conquistadores came here to Mexico, as they brought the African slaves here to do work, but also they obligated the native people to work for them, especially the peninsulares and the conquistadores, since they came here to Mexico to gain all the riches and the goods. So they basically abused the people from here to work for them and get all of our resources. And then this goes to the 18th and 19th century in the US, as we see that slaverism was very bad there. And currently, although slaverism in the US was abolished a long time ago, I believe that what we're seeing here in Mexico, in San Pedro, with the muchachas, is basically a modern way of slaverism. It's definitely not the same as before, but it's a similar concept. The muchachas are always here with us. They seem to be always doing whatever we want. It's basically slaverism. Although they are freer, it's in a way slaverism, we could say. Research. So here are a couple of important facts that I found from news articles and a document from the Mexican government. So, one, los horarios laborales extensos, la falta de seguridad social y los salarios bajos son algunas de las violaciones a los derechos laborales que sufre 97.6% de los 2.376.506 trabajadores del hogar del año pasado. So basically, this is what it's saying, that los patrones are basically disrespecting their workers. They're doing, whatever they want. And another, which is a very important point that I found in the news article, it is the trabajar as a muchacha is considered an informal job. This is very important because for being a muchacha, there's no actual paperwork. Like, for example, if you work as a teacher or in a big company like Apple, you get a contract, an actual paper where you sign and you give your rights and the money and whatever. When you work as a muchacha, there is such thing, but most people don't use it. As we see below, it says, solo 2.4% de esa población cuenta con un documento que avale su relación laboral. So basically, that was what I was saying. I was saying, so this is why the patrones can basically do whatever they want, since they cannot go to someone and quejar or complain about what's going on. The patron basically does whatever he wants, which is extremely wrong. Then, then again, se estima que 40.4% de las mujeres ganan 1 a 2 salarios mínimos. So this is basically connecting to what I said. Since there are no official paperwork for this, the patron can basically do whatever he wants, basically. And then, a very important point is, más del 50% de esta población ocupada oscila entre 25 y los 40 años. This is a very important point. I'm not going to discuss it a lot, but I'm coming back to it later. Los patrones pueden abusar de sus empleados con esta jornada de trabajo. It's basically what I was saying before, that the patron can basically do whatever they want. Another very important point that I'm coming back later, la población femenina inserta en el trabajo doméstico remunerado porcentaje 23% sin primaria completa. This again, I'm coming back to it later. And another very important point is that every year the laws for domestic workers are improved, although most of the time they are not respected. So that's very bad. Survey. So I actually made a survey with 2 questions. We're going to see the first question now, and later on we're going to see the second question. So the question was, how much do you consider to help your muchacha? 2 people said not often, 0 people said never, 5 people said extremely, and 16 people said regularly. I actually asked one of the people who said extremely, and they told me that they actually pay for the education of the daughter of their muchacha, which I found very good and very touching. In my case, we help the daughter, but not as like paying the education. We give them like notebooks, phones, and basically things that can make an impact in their life. So interview. I actually made an interview to my muchacha, although she didn't want to appear in video. I asked her a couple of questions, and right now I'm going to discuss what she answered to me in the interview. So question number 1, where are they from? So she told me she was from a ranch near Saltillo, which was like 5 hours away from here. And that's the trip that she has to make every week to come here to work with us. Dynamic with family. So what she basically told me is that all her family lives in this big ranch. And during the week, they come here to Monterey, to the city, which is where they gain their money. They basically live here until Saturday. And then during the weekend, they go back to the ranch and gather all around with the family. And my muchacha has a daughter. And while she's here working for us, her daughter's usually at school in the ranch at Saltillo, which is good. How did she begin to work as a muchacha? So this is where things get interesting. So she basically told me that when she was 15, she got in a sexual relationship with a guy she met, and she got pregnant. And well, in order to maintain her daughter, she had to begin to work very young. So she began to work in farms, and then one day a friend told her, like, hey, the patron in my home here in San Pedro wants an extra hand. Would you like to come here to work? And she said, well, of course. And she has been doing this for 6-7 years now. No, I'm sorry, like 15. No, like 12 years. 12 years. So my muchacha, yeah, 12 years. So my muchacha currently is 27, and her daughter is very young, we could say. So this is a very big issue. As I said, this is exactly what connects to the fact that I stated earlier. I'm going to go back very quickly, which is that most of the home workers are between 25 and 40 years old, and that most of them don't finish primaria or finish their education. This is because since when they are young, they made decisions such as this that basically ruined their educational career. Since now they have to feed another person, it becomes hard to leave that responsibility to her family, since considering the conditions, they probably aren't economically stable. So which is why she had to begin to work at an early age, and this had to be done to like maintain her daughter. And this is an endless cycle because probably something similar will happen to her daughter, and this is a cycle that's going on and on and on. Although this is a different issue, since for example, like protection is 100 pesos for people like us. It's gonna be like, oh, no es nada, así diríamos. But for people like them, 100 pesos, it's like a lot. And maybe the issue that they are missing sexual education, both of these things go hand in hand, but they are clearly very relevant. But that's another issue, and I don't want to go in that direction. Conditions with COVID-19, this was the second question that I was talking about. So the question is, did you send home your muchacha because of COVID-19? 4 people said yes, 18 people said no. And basically I believe that what at least my family did was we kept her here and we actually let her bring her daughter. That way they can be together. And we actually lowered her work hours. We gave her like almost half of the day free, at least that's what my mom says. And I think that's very good because times like this are very rough, and just working and working and working is not very, very good for you. Do we depend on them? I believe that this depends on how you were raised. So I believe that this can go two ways. So if since you were a little, you always dependent on your muchacha, like you never cleaned, you never learned to cook, you never learned basic things. I believe that as times goes on and your muchacha leaves and you need to live on your own, you're not going to know how to do basic things. And that's where I believe that you depend on your muchacha. For example, I've always had a muchacha, but my mother and my father always showed me basic things like tucking my bed, washing my clothes, cooking. Although I don't do it all the time, I'm sure that I know how to do it. And if I was on my own, I would be able to do this. And I just have one last short topic that I would like to mention, which is that I've heard on many cases that many people consider their muchacha like even their mother, because in some cases when their parents are divorced and and their motherly figure is not here, most kids turn to their muchacha. So sometimes they get very attached to the muchacha, and that's something a very special bond, I would say. So conclusions. I just want to quickly say that I believe that the issue that's going on here in Mexico, as I mentioned before, that the derechos of the home workers are basically not respected since there's no official like contract. I believe that like a solution for this would be to maybe promote that the government makes more efforts to make this something viable, like make home muchachas something like an a really not an informal job as the newspaper said, like an actual job that needs to be a contract with the money, with work hours, with rights and whatever. And basically, if something in the contract is broken, the not the owner, the patron can get punished for it. And I believe that another way to solve an issue like this is, as I mentioned before, like protection for sexual relationships is very expensive. So I believe that maybe sexual education for those types of communities would be very important. As we saw in my muchacha's case, when she got pregnant, it completely changed her life. So I believe that if maybe they knew all of the effects or the things that could happen if she got pregnant before she had this relationship with the guy, it would have completely changed her life. For example, she could have gone to secundaria, prepa, even university if she got a scholarship, and maybe not be working as a muchacha. We never know. So I believe that these two things are very viable solutions that could actually change the way we live here in San Pedro. Not only because I would say it's very hard for our muchachas to live the way they live, but also to educate the people of San Pedro that muchachas are not always going to be with us. We need to learn on our own how to do certain things. And that's it. I only have the sources that I mentioned, which was the newspaper and the document from the government. And that's it. Thank you.